or a private grant-aided secondary school using public funds should have prior endorsement of the authority responsible for the disbursement of such funds. The PSEA by law has been entrusted the responsibility to ensure that grants dispersed to the private secondary schools are used for the intended purpose, and funds dispersed has to be accounted for in line with the principles of good governance and accountability. I wish to highlight that in the context of the preparation of the comprehensive grant formula for the period 2022 to 2023, the National Audit Office asked for the strengthening of the system of checks and verification, as well as monitoring and control on the disbursement of grants to the PSS in view of the substantial amount of funds involved. In the corruption prevention review conducted by the ICAC for the PSEA, it was pointed out that an effective control mechanism based on the principles of checks and balances should be put in place to ensure the proper and ethical use of public funds. With regard to the recruitment of personnel by the PSS, who are also remunerated by the state, they have to satisfy conditions regarding teacher entitlement, and this has always been the case. Mr. Speaker, sir, the press communiqué from the SEDEC alleges that there has been a reduction in the grant payable. However, this is not true, Mr. Speaker, sir. An advance of 3 months is paid to each private secondary school based on the allocation given to them on the previous comprehensive grant formula. However, if they are not in a position to spend the allocated amount, the remaining amount is carried forward to the next quarter at their request. The problem noted is that the PSS, the private secondary schools, are not able to spend the funds allocated to them. Contrary to the past, where all funds dispersed, even if unspent, was cashed by the school, the new grant formula provides for a mechanism to carry the remaining balance to the next quarter. Mr. Speaker, sir, in respect of the food projects for the needy students, this is not part of the mandate of the PSEA. The comprehensive grant formula has specific components, and this element of food projects is not covered. While the PSEA is sympathetic to such projects, it's not part of its mandate as a regulator to fund such projects. The new comprehensive grant formula provides for a list of expenses broken down into direct expenses, administrative expenses, and non-recurrent expenses. Unfortunately, private secondary schools were not able to submit justifications for the expenses claimed. In addition, while scrutinizing the claims, it was found that many unreasonable and unjustified claims had been made. It is due to this reason that the PSEA was not able to effect payments of grants for the next quarter for those PSS which were not compliant. However, in order not to penalize them, the PSEA decided to effect payment in advance for the next quarter. During the second quarter, the PSEA decided to pay them forecasted expenditure for 2 months. Mr. Speaker, sir, each private secondary school has an entitlement in terms of teaching and non-teaching staff. Circulars have regularly been issued to private secondary schools since 2016, requesting them to seek and obtain prior endorsement of the PSEA before finalizing any recruitment. It is in no way an interference in the recruitment process. It has been noted that on many occasions, if the endorsement of the PSEA is not sought, private secondary schools exceed the teacher entitlement, resulting in difficult situations where the person recruited may be penalized. As far as allocation of timetable and subjects offered are concerned, it is not true to say that there is any sort of interference from the PSEA. On the contrary, the PSEA provides for guidelines and includes in the timetable the subjects which are offered by the private secondary schools. And this can have a series of subjects, namely religious studies, Bible knowledge, intercultural education, Islamiyat, and a number of others. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is a national curriculum framework to which all state and private secondary schools in the country must adhere to, as they form part of the national education system. No educational authority, or of whatever denomination, can operate as an island on its own in this country. As for the timetabling issue, the PSEA provides guidelines to ensure program coverage. However, schools have the autonomy to retain their specificity. As regards the point made on the school population at grades 10 and grade 12 impacting on entitlement of deputy rectors and educators, PSEA and even the ministry has informed them that the current entitlement of schools in respect of educators and deputy rectors will not be affected until the retirement of the incumbents. The House will also appreciate, Mr. Speaker, sir, that with the present demographic trends, schools are bound to experience a reduction in the school intake in the years to come. However, this is true even for state secondary schools. Je voudrais, Monsieur le Président, donner l'assurance qu'il n'y a jamais eu et qu'il n'y aura jamais aucune atteinte de la part de la PSEA ou du ministère à porter atteinte au droit constitutionnel des associations confessionnelles d'établir des écoles ou aux parents de placer leurs enfants dans des collèges de leur choix. Et cela a toujours été le cas. Le partenariat entre l'État et les collèges privés, est bien vivant. We have also taken cognizance of the request made by the Federation of Managers regarding dialogues and partnership. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, they have always been welcome my office. We have always been having meetings, and we have always been discussing. So the partenariat est très vivant. Mr. Speaker, sir, my ministry has always adopted a policy of open dialogue with the Federation of Managers, and as I've just said, we have been having regular meetings, and this will always be the case. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Minister for her answer. My question, Mr. Speaker, is motivated by the fact that there are 56,000 young students studying in these private schools. And I've been shocked, Mr. Speaker, to see the tone of the press conference by the Federation of Managers. This is what they say. Nous avons besoin de subir l'humiliation, de mendier ou des sous qu'on nous donne à contre-cœur. And this is what the Education Catholic had to say, Mr. Speaker. And of course, we're talking about children of all communities who are studying in these schools. And this is what the Education Catholic has to say. Une menace certaine pour la survie des collèges privés et des collèges catholiques. Having obviously read this, also received a copy of a letter to the Prime Minister, dated 8th November. I have to motivate the fact that she got a letter on the 8th of November, and addressed to the Prime Minister, copied to her. And did you take any action to meet these people? Since that time, it's already a month, nearly.
Mr. Speaker, sir, my doors are always open for the Federation of Managers and for the SEDEC. I was myself surprised to look at the tone of the communiqué. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm going to table this communiqué so that people see what has been written in there. And I will also table the amount of funds being given to schools. And I will give you the list and the amounts dispersed to schools from 2011 to 2019. And you will be able to judge, because the amount that we are giving to schools today is thrice the amount, because we're giving them on a quarterly basis in advance. So there's no curtailment of funds. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, sir, talking about this communiqué, I was extremely surprised, because I've had a meeting with them after the comprehensive grant formula had been given. And they were telling me that they agreed. However, they had certain problems regarding maintenance of school, which we are trying to see how to help. But then when I read the communiqué, Mr. Speaker, sir, where I see that depuis un certain temps, nous subissons la tentative de mainmise totale de la PSEA sur la gestion de nos collèges. Par le biais des circulaires, la PSEA nous informe des conditions imposées concernant le recrutement du personnel. Mr. Speaker, sir, we just want them to know what is the entitlement of the school, what is the number of teachers they can recruit, and this is our role. And all we are asking, we are not saying that we are not giving the funds, we are providing the funds in advance. We are just saying, come and support you.
Wait.
Let me finish. We are just asking them to... Mr. Speaker, sir, I haven't finished.
Wait, you cannot interfere. This is a reply. Let us listen to that. Please, go ahead, Minister.
Je n'ai pas terminé. Je voulais... No, I'm answering the question.
Wait.
Mr. Speaker, sir, what I'm saying is that we are providing funds. We haven't curtailed funds. We are saying that if your school population is dwindling, your teachers who are already recruited remain in the school, but then at the time of their retirement, you're not supposed to get another teacher for that position because your school population is smaller now. We are being flexible. We're saying in spite of the fact that the school population has gone down and your teacher entitlement does not allow you to have an additional teacher, we are allowing you to keep the teacher or the deputy rector until the retirement of that person, which is only too fair, Mr. Speaker, sir.
I want to operate the PNQ when I ask a question about whether she has met them, and I get an answer completely differently. There's a problem, Mr. Speaker. Let me finish now with my question. Mr. Speaker, she mentioned the need for strengthening of controls. There was some unethical expenditure, unjustified claims, and there are two types of schools, as you know. There are the profit-making schools, about 60, and then 25 schools, they are confessional schools. Catholic schools, there are Muslim schools, a Hindu school, etc. Now, which of these confessional schools you are saying are in fact lying and in fact submitting?
I never
withdraw
said
that
so.
word. Please,
Mr.
apologize
Speaker,
and withdraw that word.
Mr. Speaker, let me explain.
Apologize.
Let me explain
You
what
don't
I
have
said.
the floor.
She said the reduction was not true.
You
What does
said
that mean?
lying.
When you say something that is not true, what does that mean?
You withdraw
She
that
said-
word.
I am withdrawing, Mr. Speaker, no problem. You said that what they said were untrue. That is what you said. And now you're saying, which of these 25 confessional schools, which are put in the same panier as everyone else, which one, please, be honest,
I'll be
tell us the truth. Which one
I'll be
justifies
honest.
the sort of measures you have taken?
Mr.
Which one?
Speaker, sir.
Name me one. Central
Mr.
Deaf?
Please.
Is it Muslim?
There is an end
Is it
to the
Islamic?
question.
What? Which one is it?
Please, there is an end to a question. The question is not literature.
Mr.
Go ahead,
Speaker,
Minister.
sir, I am a minister of education for all the students in this country, and I deal with all the schools. I put them at par. Now, one thing, when I say that there has been unethical, I'm saying that ICAC has mentioned that we have to ensure that funds are being used in an ethical manner. Now, when a school having 285 boys has already a football pitch, comes and says that I want to invest on a second football pitch. Do I agree? Mr. Speaker, sir, we are talking about public funds, taxpayers' money. And that's why I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have to deal with all of them alike. Now, I'm not going to talk about confessional schools or private secondary schools. None of these, look, any profit-making school investing in its school can manage its schools on its own. But when public funds are concerned, it is my duty to ensure that it is being used properly. If I don't do that, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition can come and ask me a question. Why am I allowing schools to use public funds unethically? Now, I'm not here to pinpoint on any one school, but I would like to say that certain schools ask funds to put a lift in the school. Others ask funds to get road markers so that they can mark their schoolyards. Some others came and said that they need to replace all the computers in the school, which are in running conditions. Now, my question is, are you asking me to take public funds, to dish out public funds without having any control? I'm going to table, Mr. Speaker, sir, not only the circular letter of the circular, la presse communiquée de SEDEC, but I will also table the circular letter of the PSA, because to me, there's nothing wrong in that circular letter. We are just asking them to come forward. We have already given you the funds. Come forward, show me your receipts, and I can give you funds for the next quarter. Now, if the funds are not used, you are given the opportunity to use it again in the next quarter. So what's wrong in that? And what action am I supposed to take in such a situation when the officers are just trying to ensure that public funds are being used properly? Mr. Speaker, sir, certain schools sign a paper saying that they are having excavation works done in the schoolyard without saying for which purpose. Do we send the funds and say, okay, use it? I am myself a product of private secondary schools. I have myself worked as an educator in private secondary schools. So I don't have to learn anything from anyone to come and tell me what is the difference between a confessional school or a private secondary school. I have been in a confessional school from the age of 5 till I completed my schooling. I have been working in a confessional school for over 25 years. So I've got nothing to learn from anyone about how a confessional school is run.
Mr. Speaker, why she has been unable to tell us why 25 confessional schools are being put in the same basket
because
for unethical use and unjustified
I've
claims.
never said so.
Now, Mr. Speaker.
I've
Now,
never
Mr.
said-
Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I never said
Mr. Speaker.
I never
I'm
said
going
so.
to ask. She doesn't understand the file. That's the problem, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to read from the PSEA. She doesn't understand. This is why this mess. This is a horrible mess, Mrs. Honorable Minister. This is what it says in the PSEA. Any unutilized amount will be offset against the disbursement of the following quarter. Meaning what? That if you don't spend today, you get a reduction next time. Otherwise, they don't know how to write English. Mr. Speaker, therefore, that is a small point. I won't go too much into that point, Mr. Speaker. I will now come to some issues relating to profit-making. We understand that you have profit-making schools. There are about 60 of them there, which...
Minister, you
What are you
cannot
saying?
interfere.
Which you said
Let the
yourself.
leader of the opposition put his question.
You said yourself they are
Don't take too
profit-making
much
schools.
time. Put your question.
You said yourself they're profit-making schools. Read the Hansard. You said yourself. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask for these schools. You are paying them a small amount of rent, which was last valued in 2014. Now, I'll take two schools. I'll give you the name if you want. Both were valued independently at 1.2 million. Your ministry is giving 217,000, since that was last valued in 2014. Now, it was supposed to be revalued again, hasn't done so, at least 4 years late.
No, then you're engaging in a conversation. You know the result.
Now,
Please, put your question and
thought
no
I did.
conversation.
Did you understand my question? I said, why are you underpaying?
You finish with your question. Minister,
Well, ask the question.
the question is over. Please, reply.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to inform the House that the valuation exercise has been completed on the 30th of the last month, 30th November. The valuation exercise for all the schools has been completed.
Speaker, if you understand how this works, how you reimburse the schools is you give them a small amount of rent, much less than they ought to receive, and then you reimburse them for their expenses. Now, anybody with half a mind will understand that if I'm just reimbursing you for expenses, there's no way that you can make a return on investment. You understand? There's no way, because you're only reimbursing.
And the question?
And the question is, how are these schools going to make a return on their investment? Because in this formula, you can ask the Minister of Finance if you're getting stuck. There is no way other than reimbursement of expenses.
Mr. Speaker, sir, what I was trying to say is that the schools are run by the managers. The state provides funds for the running of the school and for ensuring that the students get quality education. What we pay to the managers in terms of rent is known as the annual rental value, ARV, and because it was decided so as far back as in 1976, when we decided to go on free education, they get an amount over a long period of time. So there is a value that is given, and there is a ceiling of 217,000 per month that is provided to the managers of the school. But all the running of the school, all the expenditure resources required to run the school is provided by the state. And it is in billions, Mr. Speaker, sir. The teachers and non-teaching staff are all paid by the state. And so what investment are we talking about? Even if they buy a computer, the state pays for that. So which return on investment are we talking about? We can just ask the teachers, the teaching and non-teaching staff of all schools, all private secondary schools. They will come and tell you what is happening in the schools. So there is no return on investment that we are expecting now. We have been paying these schools as far back as from 1976. All governments, successive governments have been doing so. Now, when we have a report from the audit office, when we have a report from the ICAC, do you want me to stay and to sit back and say, okay, let things go as it has been going on for years? No. We've got to redress, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I'm again insisting on one point, that we haven't curtailed funds. We have been providing more funds. We are just asking managers to collaborate, to cooperate, and to provide us with documents supporting the expenditure. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is important for me to table both the communiqué from SEDEC as well as the circular letter from the PSA, so that people can understand what is going on. Using a letter to come and say that everything is going wrong, and when in this letter, as I've just mentioned, we have just asked them to provide us with receipts, provide us with supporting documents. And I'm really shocked to see such a press communiqué talking about, I have to read it because I was shocked to read that myself. No, I will read it. Your question is based on this press communiqué. I'm going to read it. Not at all. Alors, nous estimons que ces agissements sont une atteinte aux droits constitutionnels des associations confessionnelles, des tabliers et des écoles, ainsi que à la liberté des parents de placer leurs enfants dans les collèges de leur choix. On vient plus loin dire que les élèves passent en grade 10 et en grade 12 dans les collèges confessionnels. C'est le droit constitutionnel des parents de faire admettre les élèves dans les collèges de leur choix. Et en plus, nous avons pris des mesures pour empêcher à ce qu'il y ait de lateral transfer dans les écoles, pour que les collèges privés puissent garder leurs élèves. Mais quand il y a une place dans une académie et qu'un élève a bien travaillé et a fait un choix d'aller dans une académie, mais je ne suis pas là à les empêcher. Maintenant, on parle de la démographie, le déclin. C'est vrai pour nos écoles aussi. Dans nos écoles primaires, nous n'avons qu'une poignée d'élèves. Il y avait une question la semaine dernière d'un membre de l'opposition. Mais c'est vrai qu'il y a un déclin. Mais je ne puis rien. Et là, je dois faire ressortir que ce serait vraiment dommage qu'on puisse venir remettre en question le comprehensive grant formula. Quand j'ai eu des rencontres avec les managers, ils étaient d'accord initialement, avec la SEDEC aussi. Alors je trouve un peu bizarre que maintenant, c'est basé sur une lettre circulaire demandant simplement qu'on revienne vers les autorités avec les documents requis, qu'on vienne nous dire que nous sommes en train de tout basculer. Non, franchement,
Leader of the opposition.
You want a question? Because she's not answering at all when I answer.
You have a question?
What is the point?
If you have
Now,
no question,
I want to ask a question to the
Leader
Minister.
of the opposition. Please.
Yes.
Leader of the opposition, please. If you have no question, I'll allow one question to Honorable Ganga Pasad. But put your question.
Also, Honourable Minister, Vice Prime Minister, I have on record here a meeting that there was at your ministry, your SCE, in October 2020. And they were very unsatisfied because they said no details were provided on the comprehensive grant formula. Which meetings have you had with these people now that the technical working group has been abolished? I saw that in the paper this morning. That is not true. Now, which meetings did you have with all these people, the Federation of Managers, etc., and when did you have that?
Mr. Speaker, sir, when the comprehensive grant formula was given to them, they came to me not 2 years ago, last year.
No conversation.
Mr. Speaker, sir, you either I answer the question or I listen to another
Please
question.
address the speaker.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I have been having meetings regularly with the private secondary schools, especially with SIDEC. After the comprehensive grant formula was given to them, they came to my office. They were saying that they were agreeable. They wanted certain changes. Oh yes, they came up with another document saying that we could change a little bit here and there. And they told me that they were very happy with the idea that they had to come and submit their receipts and all. And that's why I'm telling you that I was surprised to see this press communiqué. Because when they left my office, they were happy. And I had even told them that I'm trying to discuss with the Ministry of Finance whether we can see what can be done for the ARV. And I have been discussing with the Minister of Finance. But then they have to wait. And I've also been telling them that the evaluation process was on. And once it's done, things might improve also in terms of their ARV. But we have to be honest. They had come to me, we had discussed on all that.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, the last letter I have of 2nd December 2020, a year ago, where they met apparently your SCE. And they said in that letter, I can table it, no details were discussed. Now, do I take it firstly that the Prime Minister has not deemed fit to reply to the letter of 8th November from your supposed partners in education? You were copied with that letter. You didn't do anything either. And the last meetings you had with them was last year in 2020.
Mr. Speaker, sir, we've been having meetings with them even after that. So it is untrue to say so. I had a meeting with SIDEC and they were accompanied by the Cardinal as well. So you'll allow me to answer?
Minister,
I've had a meeting.
Forget whatever the leader of the opposition.
We had the meeting, we had
I'll take
discussed,
action, don't you
and
worry.
he's, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition was...
Leader of the opposition, don't disrupt the proceeding, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is saying that no details were discussed. They have given me a document with their proposals. How, after reading the comprehensive grant formula, so how come they didn't have the details? So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have here the table list of meetings, which I'm going to provide to you, so that we can... I'll give you the list of meetings.
No conversation, please, both sides.
Voilà.
Please, leader of the opposition, behave yourself. Behave yourself.
The technical working group met on the 24th September, 23rd October, 25th February 2020, 28th February 2020, 4th March 2020, 11th March 2020, 18th March 2020, 23rd September 2020.
Yes, please. Time is over by 5 minutes.
Mais alors,
Yes, time is
Pour cette private notice question, une PNQ intéressante ce matin qui concerne ben grant qui est alloué à ben collège privé. Alors bottom line, sa PNQ là, ministre de l'éducation, l'IPDIA qui donne fonds publics à ben collège privé, besoin d'un contrôle, besoin connaître comment peut dépenser à ça et ben collège privé, besoin capable de justifier ben dépenses qu'ils peuvent faire parce que c'est l'argent public. Leader de l'opposition, de ce côté, l'IPDIA qui pas qu'à mettre tout collège dans le même panier et l'IPDIA qui manière qui PSEA peut traiter ben collège privé, il fait référence à d'autres communiqués, l'IPDIA qui peut humilier les autres et qui peut ingérer dans cette ben activité. Et il fait aussi référence à communiqué de la CEDEC qui dit que la survie de ben collège confessionnel menacée. Alors, la ministre de l'Éducation fin dire qui donc fin démentir qu'il y a une ingérence de la PSEA dans ben collège privé et il démentit aussi le fait qu'il peut couper ben grant, il n'y a pas peut couper ben grant. Au contraire, le grant qu'il peut donner avant, en 2011, maintenant il a triplé sa grant là et peut donner un advance payment.
Tous les 3 mois.
Pésis demande donc soumettre un récit par rapport à une dépense qui peut faire et qui si je peux embarquer de un nouveau projet majeur pour l'année financière suivante, je vous informe la PSEA. Et Mme Doucan dit que dans certains cas, il y a un collège privé qui est incapable pour soumettre justification pour certains projets qu'ils finissent entreprendre. Et il dit que PSEA peut ingérer dans le processus de recrutement non plus. Mme Doucan dit que le partenariat entre l'État et les collèges privés, donc il reste bel et bien vivant. Alors, dans la tranche des questions supplémentaires, vous avez le Duval fin brandi ben communiqué de CEDEC, de la Fédération des managers des collèges privés pour causer un peu la manière qui peut traiter autres. Et vous avez Duval dire qu'il y a 60 collèges ben profit making schools. Après, il y a 25 collèges confessionnels de toutes les communautés. Et il dit qu'il ne faut pas mettre tous les dés dans le même panier. Et Mme Doucan lui fin insister sur un seul point qu'on peut dépenser l'argent public bien capable et n'a une justification. Voilà pour cette PNQ Jagdish.
Oui, c'est une l'épreuve de force qui continue donc entre la PSEA, donc c'est-à-dire le régulateur, et les managers, collèges privés, également les collèges confessionnels. Alors, il y a 2 aspects et ça, c'est une situation qui peut perdurer depuis quelque temps. Dans le sens que la PSEA, le régulateur, trouvait qu'il y a certaines dépenses peut faire, n'est pas accountable. Donc, pas capable de justifier. Et d'ailleurs, la ministre dit, je besoin d'un récit, besoin d'un document, prouver qu'il y a des travaux, ça va développement, une acquisition, il fait vraiment. Ça, c'est un aspect, donc, qui le point de vue du gouvernement. Ensuite, la ministre de l'Éducation peut faire référence à l'ICAC et l'audit qui fait une remarque concernant une dépense qui certains collèges font et qui donc pas justifiée, qui mérite un certain contrôle. Sa justification des dépenses-là, alors Xavier Duval dit pas capable de mettre ça 25 collèges que vous pouvez mentionner là, parce que c'est un collège en difficulté, je paye dans les grands moyens, absolument besoin donc capable de soutenir les autres, pas capable de mettre le même la ligne qui ban les autres collèges profit making. Alors la ministre fait référence à un collège par exemple qui a 285 élèves, il nous les fait un deuxième terrain de foot. Et il dit également que le projet alimentaire, le food project, pas concerné par une subvention, parce qu'il y a certains collèges qui ont introduit le système de programme alimentaire pour aider les enfants pauvres, les enfants défavorisés.
Et la ministre dit que la PSEA n'est pas dans son mandat pour rentrer là-dedans, pour financer un projet-là.
Oui, notre mandé, donc ça, d'après lui, il est injustifié. Alors, pour un manager collège, quand même, il est justifié. Un autre point de désaccord, c'est-à-dire le loyer, la location que le gouvernement payait à un collège, un propriétaire de collège. Et là, Xavier Duval peut dire, depuis au moins 2014, pas faire évaluation de ce bâtiment-là pour réviser le loyer. Alors, c'est là que les demandes et la ministre, combien de fois il joint ban manager de collège, ça ban surtout les
Mais la ministre, il y a une évaluation qui est complétée le 30 novembre.
Et oui, là, il vient confirmer qui donc, à peine qu'il y a quelques jours, donc évaluation complétée, c'est qui donc quand même est montré, c'est-à-dire ce droit de regard qui est là. Ensuite, la ministre peut maintenir qu'il n'y a absolument n'a aucune intention pour réduire les subventions, le grant. L'important, c'est qu'il y a une justification, il y a un collège là, donc, montrer qu'ils peuvent faire un projet dans l'intérêt de mes élèves, dans l'intérêt de sa ban étudiant là. Ensuite, la question recrutement, parce qu'il a, d'après le communiqué qui va le collège confessionnel est tiré, je peux dire qu'il même le recrutement est contrôlé. Mais ministre de l'Éducation, ce point de vue, c'est que quand une classe n'a suffisamment d'élèves et qu'il y a un député recteur ou un enseignant qui peut recruter pour sa matière-là, et une fois le phasing out de sa classe-là aller, et sa professeur-là, il prend sa retraite, pas pour un remplacement, donc pas aucune nécessité. Également, il cause la question géographique, dans le sens qu'il y a une baisse dans le nombre d'enfants, dans le nombre d'étudiants, dans beaucoup de collèges. Et ce n'est pas seulement, d'après le ministre de l'Éducation, collèges privés et confessionnels qui concernés, les dire géographiquement, aujourd'hui, il y a une baisse démographique dans le pays, alors tout ban collège également, ban collège d'État. Donc, je peux sentir les effets de sa baisse dans le nombre d'étudiants et au niveau de l'éducation secondaire.
Voilà, donc, je pense que c'est un débat qui peut continuer. Sinon, Jagdish, donc...
Il y en a également les autres questions concernant les licences radio. Donc,
exactement.
Environ donc, des questions qui sont adressées au Premier ministre. Et Covid-19, prolifération de la drogue, c'est-à-dire... Donc, ça, le député du MMM, Adil Amiamiap, demande surtout une question concernant renouvellement des licences radio, plus précisément, date qui IBA fin recevoir la demande de renouvellement de la licence de Top FM. Également, concernant la drogue, surtout la tokénique, nous remarquons qu'il y en a deux questions, donc devant un député qui peut être résolue avec la question. Et Omicron, certainement, là, le Premier ministre peut bien dire exactement, en provenance de l'Afrique du Sud, MK852, quand il venu, combien de cas de confirmation fin recensée de bandes passagers qui contaminés. Donc, autant de questions qui adressées au Premier ministre. Également, il y a une série de questions à les autres députés, donc à les autres ministres, posées par les députés. Et là, une précision, Nawaz, après hommage qui l'Assemblée nationale t'y rendait, c'est-à-dire mardi dernier à Iralal Bagalou. Donc, nous t'y fait un rappel l'engagement politique de Iralal Bagalou, surtout sur l'élection en 1976, mais pas un slip of the tongue, je veux dire, qu'Iralal Bagalou t'y cède ce portefeuille de ministre de l'Éducation à Keir Jagat Singh. Alors, le fils de Iralal Bagalou, Sanjay Bagalou, il fait une rectifier le mot céder dans le sens qui lui préciser qui, en effet, c'est vrai, et Iralal Bagalou pas cédé, mais il a démissionné comme ministre de l'Éducation et après 15 jours sur nomination parce qu'il n'est pas du genre pour rester dans le cabinet et accepter tout ban dictat. D'après le fils de Iralal Bagalou, donc c'est un désaccord autour admission des élèves, justement, nous cause beaucoup l'éducation d'un collège confessionnel entre Iralal Bagalou et Sassi Sagar Ramgoulam qui et le ministre de l'Éducation, donc le ministre concerné, il prend la décision de démissionner en 1977, en janvier 1977, parce que ça étudiante là, tu gagnes un collège confessionnel, mais collège confessionnel, tu refuses pour en lit. Et quand Iralal Bagalou, comme ministre de l'Éducation, il a le guet Sagar Ramgoulam pour dire, voilà la situation, comment il était. Et donc, le Premier ministre, alors, il dit, pas capable de la guerre avec l'Église. Et donc, il propose, trouve une place pour ces enfants-là dans l'autre collège, possiblement au collège Queen Elizabeth. Maintenant, et Sanjay Bagalou, le fils, rappelle-nous, qui ce papa, pas fin encore tous le mandat, le paiement de 15 jours comme ministre parce qu'il pensait que sa mandat-là est incapable d'égarer quelque part dans le dossier d'Iralal Bagalou quand même, qui finit un homme de principe une grande personnalité, nous pouvons dire, un grand homme politique qui marque l'histoire du pays. Dans les années, il a été le premier président du MMM et qui fut donc élu en 1976 comme député.
Voilà, les faits sont rétablis. Sinon, Jagdish, retour du Offshore Petroleum Bill, un autre projet de loi controversé.
Oui.
Qui est mis au frigo dans le contexte de la conférence le changement climatique, le COP26, qui a pas mal de critiques de la part de l'opposition. Et là, le projet de loi peut faire ce grand comeback au sein du Parlement. Et bien sûr, maintenant, il peut être voté, adopté par la Chambre.
Oui. Alors aujourd'hui, en deuxième et troisième lecture, il prévoit à l'agenda avec un petit point d'interrogation, c'est Arvin Boulel qui retrouve sur place dans l'hémicycle depuis la semaine dernière. Il a envoyé un mail pour dire qu'il a fait une demande pour prendre part dans un débat concernant ce projet de loi et que le whip de l'opposition et du gouvernement est d'accord, mais d'après lui, il peut dire, il paraît qu'il n'est pas pour autoriser causer ce projet de loi-là. Nous pouvons attendre le développement si vraiment il y a un pays qui peut commettre vis-à-vis d'Arvin Boulel ou bien c'est une décision vraiment qui est justifiée sur le plan après la suspension du député travailliste.
Voilà, autant pour cette séance des travaux parlementaires. Donc, le compte-rendu complet sera à 13h avec Ruth Radiessar. Merci. Merci, à bientôt. Et mon rappel aussi, auditeur, internaute. Donc, rendez-vous cet après-midi avec Alkiz Ramdin et Elodie Doman pour l'émission Au cœur de l'info.